Good afternoon and welcome to all of you to the regular meeting of the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners. And we're going to begin our meeting with an invocation from Pastor Ben Marsh from First Alliance Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Bessie. I want to thank Pastor Marsh for being here. He's been here several times before, and I appreciate his willingness to do that. So please stand if you're able.
Let us pray. God who sees, you see us now. You see what we've done and will do in public and in private. And so we pray, God of wisdom, grant us wisdom, that all that we do aligns with the terms of the economy of your kingdom, that we as your trustees and servants serve humbly, serve without pride, serve faithfully, and serve justly this community you've given us. Teach us in all that we do right and all that we do wrong to constantly rely on you above all, and forgive us our sins and our mistakes, which may often be many, but we hope will be few. Fill us today with your hope, your peace, your justice, above all your presence and your love, and let us love each other even as we love this community that we share. Thank you, Lord, for all these gifts you give us and for hearing our prayer today. Amen.
Amen. Oh, sorry.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Dane. Citizens who are interested in participating in the public session portion of the meeting, you may do so by calling, if you're by telephone, you can call on 336-422-1200, and you'll be placed on hold until the public session begins. And for those of you that may be watching live, the number again is 336-422-1200. And members of the audience who wish to speak are interested in speaking in the public session portion of the meeting, and that's not the hearing part. We'll have an opportunity to participate in the hearings, but we do have a monthly, an opportunity twice a month in our regular meeting to have the public session. You just need to fill out a speaker card, and our clerk will actually call you when we get to that item on the agenda. Before we continue, I'd really like to have a sort of a special happy note here to recognize our county manager, Dudley Watts. Actually, we had an opportunity today. The North Carolina City and County Managers Association is having their annual meeting here in Winston-Salem, and they do give out 2 awards every year. And the particular one that our county manager was accepted for was a great award. It's called the White Hart Service Award, named after a previous city manager, I believe, was White Hart, and he actually was known for his service, commitment to the community. So the award actually is for diligence and support of local government professionals. And I think of those of you that know our county manager, he has had a wonderful career, both here for a long time, 16 years, I think, and prior to that in other locations. So really appreciate the great work that he does, and I'd like to ask all of you to join me in congratulating him, and we could give a round of applause for that. Thank you. And he was almost surprised. We got ready for the lunch, and somebody told him, says, "Your wife, by the way, is coming in. We got a place for her, and you're going to get this award." And another 10 minutes, you would have been really surprised.
Yeah, but I'd forgotten. I remember the assistant manager award because Damon got it a couple of years ago, and I'd forgotten about the Whitehurst award, and just appreciate it. But the truth is, in public service, it's a bunch of people that do work, and John Whitehurst, I knew him pretty well. He was I very much appreciated what he did was mentor folks, and especially as I get to the end, the latter part of my career, that's the most important thing. So, yeah.
Well, we appreciate the service you provide here in Forsyth County, and certainly to this board. So, congratulations again. We have our Also, every meeting, we have an update from Joshua Swift, our Public Health Director. We've been following COVID-19 updates we ought to have a number, it's probably well into the hundreds now, so.
All right. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'll pull up the presentation. Okay. This is a brief update for February the 2nd. And before I start, thank all the public health staff and just the partners with the county government. We've almost 3 years this has been going on. The first part of March will be 3 years. But a brief snapshot for today. Over the last 14 days, we've seen a decrease in our cases by 35%. Deaths have increased slightly, 7%. And hospitalizations from COVID in our Forsyth County hospitals are at 35 Forsyth County residents. You can see this is a graph I've showed you over time. It is our lab confirmed cases. This is through January the 28th. And you can see where we're close to 800 cases per week of lab confirmed cases in the middle of December, later December through Christmas. And then now it's slowly started to decline, and we're at around 400 cases per week. This next chart is one I've shared with you before. It's from the University of Washington, their School of Medicine, and the Institute for Health Metrics. This shows the same time period as I showed you before with our Forsyth County cases, and you can see the projections. To the vertical line is today, and you can see going forward what they're projecting is that we slowly decrease with our cases across the state. That's what we're starting to see here in Forsyth County, so we think it'll be the same, and we'll stay at a, not totally go away. We know COVID's not going away, it's here to stay, but at a more, at a manageable level. Our community level right now, per the CDC, this changes every Thursday, or they update it. We're at medium. That's where we've been the last 2 weeks. We have been low and we have been high most recently. So right now the guidance is for high-risk individuals should talk with their doctor or healthcare provider about masking. And the next slide is, informing the public that we still have COVID-19 vaccine available. Depending on the day, it can be busier than others, but today at lunch, there was over a dozen people waiting to get their vaccine, get their boosters, coming into the Department of Public Health on Highland Avenue. And then my last slide is we're now trying to anticipate what the future will be. You heard earlier this week that the President, the federal emergency will be ending on May 11th. That is a change. We were hearing that it would be the end of March. But it's been extended. It's at May 11th of 2023. Our latest guidance is that state vendor testing, supported testing will be ending on March 30th. We do have at-home test kits. They're available here at the Government Center, the Health Department, all 10 library branches. We're distributing around 500 to 700 of those test kits per month out of those locations. We had 4,000 tests on hand. We've ordered and received another 5,000, so we believe we have enough test kits to last us through the next 12 months. And we have also requested a kiosk. This is something that the state rolled out at a recent health directors meeting. The CDC wants to put 10 of these kiosks across the state. We weren't on the list, but I asked to get us on the list, and we are hopefully going to get this from the state, and it will be almost like a red box where you can go get a movie. We're going to try to have it on the Health and Human Services campus where it's available 24/7, no cost, where a person, 8 o'clock at night, it's on a Saturday, the health department's not open, libraries are closed, they could still go get a at-home test, put in some information, no payment needed, and they'll get an at-home test that they can take. So we're hopeful of that. Will come in soon. We've been working with General Services to try to find a good spot. So we're hopeful that that'll happen. And the next piece is vaccine commercialization. So for the past 2 years, 2+ years, vaccine has been available at no cost, and that's something we're looking at. The latest guidance is in March or April of this year. It may be delayed since the federal emergency is not ending till May, that we'll have to start paying for COVID-19 vaccine. And so how we're going to handle that. To put this in perspective, thank you for the commissioners. You support flu vaccine every year for us. That costs $10, $12 per dose. What we're hearing about COVID vaccine is going to be $100 to $120 per dose. And you may ask, well, why can't you, let's ask for more from the state. What we're getting from the state now, when we request vaccine like we've been doing for 2 years, where it used to have a shelf life of at least a year or so, now that shelf life is literally a month or so. So in other words, we can't, there's not the option to, like we've done with the at-home test, to stock up. So that's something we're, working through now, how we'll do that, how to respond to the community. Thankfully, most of the community, we have a high vaccination rate. 70% of our community has at least had those first 2 doses. 95% of the community has been exposed or had COVID-19, so we have that built-in immunity. So those are good things, but I'd be happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Joshua?
Yes, Chairman, I do have a question. Joshua, thank you so very much. This information was very good in terms of the kiosk. I thought that was great. However, I had a particular question about the vaccination shelf life, and I think you've kind of hit on that, but I just wanted to be clear. Are they good for a year, or will it be a couple months?
Well, the vaccine, like I said, the vaccine that we're currently
No, the
getting.
testing, the test.
Oh, these
Yes.
test kits that we get, they're up to a year.
Up to a
Yeah,
year, okay.
should be.
Because I had some that were home that had expired, and
Yeah, we, at one point when you were going to the library and getting those kits, obviously when they were being handed out, they were in date.
okay.
But then obviously there's an end date on those. I had 2 or 3 at my home that I got from the library and then had to go get, back to the library to get more.
So the ones that we're getting in the kiosk, they'll last for at least a year?
Well, the
for
ones in
free.
the kiosk, that'll be through a separate vendor.
Okay.
So I would not say that you can guarantee that any test that you get today will be a year. But the ones we have got on hand now from the state, we literally got 3 pallets of them. Those are, have an extended shelf life that should last through the year.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman. Go ahead.
I know this question's going to be above your pay grade, but literally, but the commercialization decision, is that a congressional decision? Was it an administration decision? Can you tell us, FYI?
I believe that is a decision from the federal government just because we're ending the federal emergency. Because of the federal emergency, the vaccine has been paid for by the federal government. So, some counties, some health departments, we did not charge an administrative fee. We charged no fees for the vaccine for the last 2 years. But again, we were getting the vaccine for free. Most other vaccines we get, we have to pay for the vaccine, obviously, before we can give it.
And will we be getting them through a contract with a particular agency, or how will we be getting our supply in future?
Well, we would be ordering those through, the 2 primary ones are Moderna and Pfizer.
That will be dealing directly with Moderna or Pfizer?
Yes.
And there wasn't any provision in the original massive public subsidy for the development of at least the Moderna, that there be supplies at cost?
And that one went way above my pay grade there. So, but yeah, we have not heard anything of any ways to reduce that cost.
Yeah, that's
What we're hearing from the vendors is at $100 to $120 a day.
for ongoing community immunity, that's going to be above the ability of smaller jurisdictions and certainly most individuals to pay.
Yeah. Yeah, my concern is if you have insurance, I would imagine most insurances will pay for that. But what if you're uninsured or underinsured, meaning maybe you have insurance, but it doesn't cover doesn't cover the vaccine?
Yeah, it's going to be about 10% of the population at least. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
So in that same vein, in fact, I just remember we just bought some flu vaccine.
Yes, sir.
It's not itemized into per dose. What does it run on roughly per dose, the flu vaccine that we purchase?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So the commissioners, I think it was $117,000 from Sanofi Pasteur. You all support that every year where we buy that vaccine, and we give that out. We don't charge any fee, no administrative fee or anything. It's about $10 to $15 per dose, depending. The high-dose vaccine for 65 and older is a little more expensive than the general population dose. Those expenses don't quite cover all the syringes and any supplies like Band-Aids or gloves.
So you're expecting the COVID-19 vaccine commercialization is going to be roughly $100 to $120 a dose?
Yes, sir.
10 times the flu. And and they certainly are making a large quantity of that. That is a little surprising.
Yes.
Interesting. Any other questions for Joshua? As usual, thank you for all you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
First item on our agenda today is a public hearing on the zoning petition of EM Light Airs from RS20 to RM8S. And Chris Murphy, Planning and Zoning Development Services Director, is going to be our first speaker. Give us an overview. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, County Commissioners. This is a request to rezone 15.5 acres on the east side of Old Hollow Road, across from Old 66 Circle, from RS20 to RM8S. The petitioner is the EM Light Airs. This is the subject property shown on the countywide growth management area plan. Notice the area is located in Growth Management Area 4, Future Growth Area, and on the edge of the activity center there at NC 66, Old Hollow Road, and US 158, Reedsville Road. This is the subject property highlighted in yellow. You see it there on the northeast side of Highway 66, Old Hollow Road. Just to the east of the Walkertown Commons and the landing at Walkertown Commons shopping areas, they're zoned HBS. And in those shopping areas, there's also some RM18S multifamily on the south side and in the GBS portion on the north side of Old Hollow Road, which are multifamily in nature. Subject property shown on the countywide aerial imagery outlined in yellow. Again, you notice the developed nature of the properties to the west. Since the time that these aerial photos were taken, the two properties over from this has developed as a Mavis Tire location, and I believe there's a petition that is in the process for a car wash on the piece directly to the west of the subject property. Here's a subject property shown on the Walkertown Area Plan Update, which was adopted by the Commissioners back in 2014. The recommended land use in the adopted plan is for residential building single family. Of course, the request before you is for RM8S. As I mentioned earlier, the Growth Management Area Plan it's in Growth Management Area 4, Future Growth Area. However, it does have the ability to have public sewer here, and whenever you have public sewer available, it recommends densities and development of the suburban neighborhoods GMA 3 Growth Management Area, which is a higher density. And it's staff's opinion that this is a good transitional use to have the RM8 townhomes between the more intense commercial zoning and higher in density multifamily to the west and the single family zoning on the east and to the north. Just some images taken near the site. This is looking to the northwest. The Mavis Tire location that I spoke of is the building that's directly behind the zoning sign that you see. The subject property is where the zoning sign is located, and that's the curve going towards the intersection of 158 and NC 66 at the traffic light. This is looking north. You see the multifamily development to the northwest. You see part of that Mavis Tire building there, again, behind that zoning sign. This is the private access easement that goes and serves several single-family residential homes to the northeast of the subject property. You see the wooded nature of the subject property as well. This is looking south along NC 66 Old Hollow Road. The subject property is to the left. This is the site plan. It is for 100 townhome units. There is, the proposed site plan has one way in and one way out into the proposed development, and that 100-unit cap is the reason, why, because state statute under the fire code, you can only, you have to have more than one means of ingress and egress to have over 100 units. There is a private pump station that will collect the effluent here and will pump it back and get into the public sewer. But again, the lift station itself will be a private lift station. If you notice along NC 66 and Old Hollow Road, there is an area that is set aside for reservation for right-of-way for the proposed project. There is a change in state statute that doesn't allow and or require the NCDOT to for that to be dedicated fee simple to them, but there needs to be a reservation if there are future road projects. So the setbacks for the townhomes are set back from that future property line, not the current property line. I think that's important for any future road projects that are needed as a result of the traffic in the area. This is just a rendering of what the townhomes would look like. I sent a memo based on a question that was asked at the last meeting related to the improvements along NC 66, whether or not the proposed improvements could fit within the existing right-of-way without taking any of the buildings and kind of what the time frame for that was. This is just the image of the US 158 project. I can't remember the state number. It was in the memo. This is the NC 66 project. They are both, I believe, scheduled for construction in 2024. They both have the same treatment on the east side of the Reedsville Road NC 66 signalized intersection, and that calls for 2 through lanes moving further to the west into downtown Walkertown, a dedicated left turn heading south back towards Winston, and a dedicated right turn lane heading north towards Reedsville. That project tapers off as it gets further to the east and does end before it gets to the subject property. But again, that might address some of those concerns with the stacking that is currently taking place at the 158 NC 66 intersection. So that's a little additional information that's in this presentation from the briefing sessions that we have had. In looking at the project in summary, the proposal provides an ideal land use transition between the US 158 NC 66 Activity Center and the nearby single-family uses. The townhomes kind of serve as a step down in zoning intensity from the real intense zoning to the single-family on the edge. The request will provide additional housing close to goods and services in a walkable area. The developer is proposing an additional buffer yard along the Old Hollow Road and the private easement to lessen the visual impact of the development on vehicular traffic, and that's above and beyond what's required by the ordinance. And then finally, the road and right-of-way issues along NC 66 Old Hollow Road have been accommodated through those anticipated road projects, through the reservation of this right-of-way for with the subject property for future road improvements, and through the NCDOT driveway permit requirements where they have to put in dedicated left and right turn lanes. This was heard by the Planning Board at their December 8th, 2022 public hearing. There were 2 speakers in opposition. The opposition cited concerns with traffic, inconsistency with the plan, and their thought that this wasn't very walkable. Following discussion, the Planning Board voted 7-1 to recommend approval of the request to the commissioners. And with that, I'll be glad to try to answer any questions that you might have.
Maybe just a little more clarification on these right-of-way. So is there land, clearly, would there be enough space to actually put a 4-lane road in front of that, of the subject area we're looking at? I'm certain it would be enough to put 3 lanes.
More than likely, there should be. Again, if you take the property that's being reserved for this project, of course, on the other side of the road, you don't have a reservation of right-of-way on the other side because it's undeveloped at this point. Not talking about where the shopping centers are, but directly across from the subject property, There hasn't been a development proposal there. I'm not sure what the right-of-way is. If there was a development proposal on the other side, I'm sure NCDOT would ask for the same type of reservation there, and certainly you could fit that in. Obviously, where the shopping center is further to the west, there is room to have
4 lanes.
more than 4 lanes whenever you factor in the turn lane. So again, I think that when and if there is a state transportation improvement program plan for the section that goes in front of the subject property back further to the southeast towards Kernersville, I imagine it would be a 3 or 4 lane cross section. But again, there's not anything on the TIP at this point for that.
That's good. And can you talk a little bit more about the sort of the difference of opinions and walkability? Particularly, in fact, you could even go back to the map that shows it shows that it's the existing condition map where it's not built right there, and where the first little parcel. There are 2, I guess, areas. Well, car wash is going to be closest to the subject property, and then there's already a tire company on the next block or the next piece there. So where would the walk, and where would the walk, how would people get there? Going to be sidewalks in front on the road frontage on 66 on the subject property, correct?
That's correct, and it's my understanding that there are sidewalks on the new Mavis Tire site along Alder Hollow, that there would be the same thing for the car wash. And then I'm not sure that there is a consistent sidewalk all the way to the intersection at 158 along 66, but there is a sidewalk network internal to the development on the north side, and then similarly on the south side that would get you into those shopping areas from the main road. And of course, there are internal sidewalks to this development. There are sidewalks along 66. So again, there is that opportunity to live near shopping and medical offices and those kind of things and walk to them. I'm not saying folks are going to walk. We're not the type of community that walks a lot, but again, you would have the opportunity to do that and perhaps reduce the number of trips on the road.
And so, and on the sewer part, you did mention that the developer intends to build a private lift station that would be available. That could be who will pay for it? I assume Walkertown City would make the decision to actually expand the sewer line to hook up with that lift station?
City county utilities will accept the effluent if they can get it to them. So there's a private lift station here, and then they will install a force main that crosses 66 and gets into the gravity sewer on the northwest side of 66. So on the same side as where Lowe's Foods and the Sheets is, that the developer will be responsible for the private lift station and the force main to get into the gravity sewer, and then it will go into the city county utility system.
Right. Yeah. I a lot of times refer to as the Walkertown sewer, but the city county utilities manage that. I got it.
Correct.
I apologize for that. All right, good. Any other questions for Chris?
I have one now because he's on a slide. I want to ask questions, and then I have probably have some later. Right there at where it's HBS, where the S is right on the yellow line, right there on 6th. Okay. That, the Walkertown's Commons Shopping Center was zoned in about, is either January or February or very early of 2000, I think. And where the apartments are, I cannot remember where that was incorporated in the first zoning. And the county did this. The county didn't do the second one across the road. But this HBS there, whether it was done at a separate time than when the larger portion of the shopping center done, where this parcel is, for it to have access, is it going to have to come out on 66 at whatever time it might be developed, or is there a way to get to that internal street?
just want to make sure that we're talking about the same. Are you talking about the piece of property directly to the east on the same side or on the other side? The other side of 66?
It's what I call the west side. I
Okay.
don't know which you call it.
Perhaps.
On the same side of the Walkertown Commons, at the very, right there at Old 66 Circle. where
Perhaps the
red
town
line-
manager for Walkertown can address that. I'm not 100% sure because I can't remember. It definitely came in at a later time. I can't remember if it is going to tie into the Walkertown Commons Shopping Center or whether it's going to have direct access to 66. I just can't remember. And it may already be developed. It seems like that came in, I think it came in around the time the aerials were done, which would have been 16, 17, 18, that time frame, but I'm not sure if it's been constructed
There's
and
nothing there
or
but
what the plan called for.
It's a vacant lot, but I was just wondering, it looked like to me the access probably is going to need to be at 66. If it can come back internal, that's going to be better for all that's going on in the area now.
And it may be that there's a shared driveway on that property line between that HBS and the other HBS beside of it. It could be that there's a shared driveway. I'm just not 100% sure
Well,
out
can
on
you
the 66.
Get that? I guess just
If this is continued, and I'm not sure what the commissioner will do, and whether that's what Walkertown is asking for, I could always answer that
Well,
question when I come by.
I believe this is one that Walkertown did in later.
It
6,
definitely
7
was,
years
because
ago.
even the Sheets final development plan on the corner, the commissioners approved the zoning, but the town of Walkertown actually approved the Sheets final development plan because this was done as a two-phase zoning. So the initial rezoning of the shopping center was done by the commissioners, but just about everything since then on that parcel has been done by the town of Walkertown.
Did the Walkertown do the apartment complex on
Yes,
the west side?
yes.
Okay.
And the north side, but yes, definitely on the west side as well. And again, I don't know if that was if that was shown on the original plan, but it's definitely been built since the town of Walkertown took over the role in zoning. I can't say whether or not they specifically approved the plan, but perhaps the town manager could answer that one as well.
Okay, I think that's
All
all I
right,
have.
any other
tonight.
questions?
Thank you, Chairman Martin.
Sorry, excuse me.
Oh, no problem. I was wondering if Scott Snow, I guess he's maybe the manager of Walkertown, he said that he would be here today, and I was wondering if it's allowable for him to come up and say anything about the study that they're doing to provide us more data to vote appropriately.
I think we could probably do it in the context of the hearing, and then we could, when he speaks, we could actually pause our timer and talk a little bit about,
Okay.
ask some questions, instead of 2 trips back and forth, and do it that way.
Thank you.
All righty. This is a public hearing. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, sorry. This is a public hearing, and speakers will have up to 15 minutes total to speak in favor of this request, up to 15 minutes in total to speak in opposition. And is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of the petition? Come up and just give us your name and address, and we'll start the timer here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Amanda Hodiern, 804 Green Valley Road, Suite 200 in Greensboro. I'm an attorney representing the petitioner and would-be developer of this project that you see before you today. So thank you for your time this afternoon. As always, Mr. Murphy has given you a very thorough and well-developed staff report, so I don't want to belabor too many of those details. Certainly happy to answer any questions or add any more info from our perspective that I can to his points, but I do want to focus my time on highlighting just a couple of those items that I would think are extra important. The first, of course, is one of the points of Mr. Murphy's report. One of his positive aspects and reasons for recommending approval here is that this proposal does represent a very ideal land use transition in the area that's missing right now. And I think it's worth noting that there is a distinction in reality between multifamily and townhomes. Your code calls it all the same. They call it multifamily. And you'll hear, well, there's already multifamily in the area. And of course, you've even talked about it some today. But that's not the same in practice, in reality, as a townhome, even though your code treats it all the same. And that's done for various reasons to make sure that it's served and regulated and life and safety issues are handled properly. But in practice, it's much different. When you go out to live in a home, it's a different consumer. It's a different set of wants and desires of that homeowner or renter when they're looking for an apartment versus a townhome. So when we look for things like your legacy plan calls for, which is a variety of housing and housing optionality, and making sure that these areas, particularly these activity center areas, are infused with all of those housing options, townhomes and multifamily need to be part of that discussion, not just all multifamily. A townhome can be owned versus rented. People might want to live in this area and not have to mow a lawn, but they still want to be building some home ownership equity. That's different than an apartment. And so I just want to note that for the record, that when we talk about housing variety, that's a key aspect of it. It also is the reason why it's an important transition. Multifamily and retail and commercial, true multifamily apartments, I'm talking about all the stuff you have up at Walkertown Commons and up at the intersection of 158 and 66, that's an intense use corner by plan, by design. That's where all of that intensity is focused in Walkertown. So as you emanate out from that intensity, you want to step down to your single-family uses, and you want to do that incrementally. A natural way to do that, this isn't my opinion, this is planning practice, and this is in your comprehensive plan guidance, the way to do that is with office uses or townhome uses. So that's exactly what this plan offers you. It offers you that step down from this high intensity. Also want to highlight the right-of-way dedication or reservation rather, that's being offered as part of this plan. That's not required. It's not part of the current planned widening study, but we want to be proactive and we want to make sure that we plan for these future improvements that we all know will come someday, and make sure that that's not going to negatively impact our future residents or NCDOT as they try to complete their project. Also want to highlight in the walkability discussion that while we all wish we could wave a magic wand and just put the connectivity on the ground, the way that it happens is through bond projects, through a municipality or a county, or through private development. And so that means it's incremental progress. And what this development can do is add to that progress. You've got the internal sidewalks and the street sidewalks that Mr. Murphy mentioned already, but as new development comes along, it's important for that development to contribute as well, and to make sure that you're filling in that network and getting those pedestrians or would-be pedestrians that much closer to a completely connected pedestrian infrastructure. And so this project is doing that. We're completing our internal sidewalk network so that walkers can get out to the Old Hollow Road sidewalk, and we're creating our whole frontage here that you see along Old Hollow with a sidewalk. So that will allow pedestrians to be safer that much longer and to have that accessibility. And it will also allow that much more of the network to be in place as future development comes along. This is a working farm to our north. I talked with these property owners several times during this process. They're not planning on getting rid of that farm during their lifetime, but someday that farm will turn over. Someday that will develop also. And when that sidewalk comes in, when that develops, whether it be my lifetime or my children's lifetime, it's going to be great that this sidewalk is here ready, waiting, and able to catch all that pedestrian activity coming out of that intense commercial hub at the corner. That also is why all this housing variety is important. All these things are connected so that people can work up here if they don't have a car, or if they want to be car optional, if they want to have a one-car household, so that people can shop here, so that people can attend after-school activities here. So all of this builds on each other for a reason, and it's why the comp plan is laid out the way that it is. Also want to highlight our community involvement process. I spoke of it briefly, but we did engage with the neighbors here. We had a neighborhood meeting that was well attended. And the main things we heard was there's a private access easement. You can kind of see it on the aerial here. And if you're familiar with the site, you may have noticed it. But it serves this farm property to the north, and it serves this house to east, to the east that you see here. So that was very important to those folks. They did not want that easement interfered with. They didn't want our traffic using it. They wanted it to stay private for their use, and they wanted it to be screened. So we actually took that feedback, and we asked for a continuance from the planning board back in November so that we could go back to the drawing board and try to adapt and accommodate their concerns, which we did. We moved our road network so that we were no longer sharing their easement for any length of time, and we were not backing up our townhomes to their easement with no screening in between. So they were pleased with that, with the better buffering and with the fact that their easement would remain intact without any interference from our residents. As part of that process, what we also did was eliminate one of our access points. Originally, we were proposing two, one that was right at that five-legged intersection, I'll call it, and one that was further down 66. And I think this goes to your point, Mr. Linville, of trying to manage all that congestion that could happen with too many access points there at that awkward intersection. So our redraw helped that as well. We now have just one access point. It's located further down 66, away from that five-legged interchange, which made NCDOT much happier. It made our neighbors who use that private easement much happier, and it also resulted in a reduction of a few units. I think it was 7 or 8 units that we reduced to get down to an even 100 and kind of center up our plan and eliminate that confusion and awkwardness around that five-legged interchange. We do have significant buffers, as you've heard. We have more than your code requires along Old Hollow Road to try and keep that streetscape aesthetic as it is right now. We also, if you look at the site plan that's in your packet, looks like this, and you saw it in the presentation. We also, you'll note, are hugging the development up to the road. So we're also protecting a good bit of acreage to our east and our north. And we've got tree conservation areas there and just unused acreage. This is a site-specific zoning special use, as you know, which means that this is it. This is the site plan that you're approving if this rezoning gets approved. So it's not like we can come back later and decide to put some townhomes in this extra acreage. So that's as you see it. And that is a nice setback and preservation away from our neighbors to the east and our farming neighbors to the north. I would strongly ask and urge and request that we do not continue this today. My client and the sellers are ready to go. This is a contract purchase, as I've alluded to, and we would like to be able to see through those deadlines and move forward. We were able to get one extension when we wanted to delay the project back in the fall so that we could work with our neighbors, continue to work with staff, and get a better project, which we did. I think that was time well used. I think Walkertown has been involved this whole time. You'll note in your record that they had gave some recommendations to staff back as early as October, which also were incorporated in our redesign. So I think we've all been working at this for a while now, and would hope that we can fully vet this today and move forward with the understanding and with the expert analysis that your staff has given you that we really do have the requisite data today to make an informed decision. And I'm here to answer any questions and hope that you'll call upon me to do so if I can be of assistance during your deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you. And if we have questions, go ahead and you can be seated
right
now.
here.
If we have questions, we'll get to it at the end.
Okay.
We're running pretty close. If there's anyone else that would like to speak in favor of the request. Okay. Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the request? Just give your name and
Yes,
address.
my name is Glenn Eaton. I live at 3591 Old Hollow Road. It's the property that the house is here that back right up to the property. So I know the town of Kernersville is here today, and I know they are asking for a continuance so that they can do the traffic study. And I'm just here to say that I hope that you will delay it just long enough to look at that traffic study, just to see if this project is overly aggressive or not. We're not so much, against progress. We're fine with progress, but it just seems overly aggressive for what's going on. We do talk about the sidewalks and everything that's going to be there, but also with that deeded right-of-way that we have, we would not be in favor of sidewalks being across that and having to dodge people coming into our driveway, dodge them going out. So I don't know if there's actually going to be that connectability that is being spoke of. The sidewalks are there, yes, but I don't think we're in favor of connecting those two properties. We think they're separate. And so basically, that's really what it comes down to, is just the traffic is really, really bad. We've seen a lot of growth in this area over the last few years. It's been managed. I think, they are doing, things to try to accommodate it. I think on a smaller scale, it would be great, but I think on this size scale, it's just overwhelming. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Good afternoon, Commissioners and Chairman. My name is Scott Snow. I'm the Town Manager of the Town of Walkertown. My address is 5177 Main Street, Walkertown. And I'm here to represent the Walkertown Town Council and to discuss with you their recommendations and the requests that they've made. One quick note I'd like to make, I think in Mr. Murphy's presentation, he mentioned that there was a car wash that was a final development plan approved on adjacent to this section, but that car wash is actually across the street on the south side of the Walkertown Commons section. There's a cookout and the car wash is there. The site adjacent to this site has not had a final development plan submitted yet, so that's the car wash. I hope there's not a third car wash that's coming in, because there's already two in that commercial center as it is. So for right now, there's not a site plan that we're aware of. So just a quick note on the walkability. I think the town had brought that up at the planning board. Again, the concern is the sidewalk does not have a connection to the commercial center there. That the easement there would block. It runs along the entire site property line there, so there wouldn't be an opportunity to connect that sidewalk to any potential sidewalks that's built on that final plan. And the Mavis Tire is actually the only site there that currently has external sidewalks. So there's not a sidewalk on the roadside from Walkdown Commons Circle to the intersection at 158. So there is some limited pedestrian facilities there for the rest of the shopping center. As far as the question about the lot that Commissioner Linville had, the HBS lot beside the old 66 Circle, yes, that lot came in after the full Walkdown Commons plan. So it does not, to my knowledge, have any easements to cross that. The lot there where the car wash is being built, I think the car wash plan has already been approved and it's under construction now. So there's no driveway access to the current shopping center. So any access point would have to come off of 66. So that would be an additional driveway that would have to be added to 66 for that to be developed. So as was mentioned before, that the town has asked for a continuance for this case. The town currently has had on our schedule a traffic study plan for the Walkertown Commons Circle intersection. That's a very high volume intersection there, a lot of turn conflicts. So as was shown on the presentation from Mr. Murphy, the NCDOT widening project stops before it gets to that intersection, and DOT has been very clear that they have no intention now to extend that to address any issues at that intersection there. So we are working with traffic engineers to do a plan for that, and we're asking for is time to complete that study and present it to the commissioners, because we believe that information will be beneficial to what you're considering in this case.
All right, let me see if there's anyone else that wants to speak, and then we'll be able to ask questions. Is there anyone else wishing to make any comments in opposition to this petition? Okay, hearing none, I suspect there are several questions, and I'll start with one, but just a couple. And perhaps I'd like to see where the driveway is that we're talking about that's on this map. Maybe maybe Chris could actually, because he's got his mouse and could show us I'm assuming it's the property line straight, which I guess is heading more north, I guess, mostly, right off of just above the 66 line.
Which driveway? The driveway that goes to the gentleman?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, it's right here.
That's,
You see, you can barely see it here along the line. You can see it up
Okay.
here in this corner where it makes that turn,
yes.
and then it comes this way, and then I believe this was the speaker's old house, and he still owns it, and this is his new house, is that correct? Yeah. Yeah. So he owns both of these properties, but this is the driveway, and it basically lines up kind of with Old 66 Circle. And then the driveway for the proposed development is more in this area here, kind of center on the frontage of the proposal.
Is it paved or gravel?
It's gravel. The existing driveway, of course, the proposed driveway for the project will be paved.
Yeah, but I'm talking about
Yeah, his driveway is
access
gravel.
driveway.
Correct.
It's gravel. Okay. And
Just one point of clarification, I did check, and Scott Snow is correct. It was Batten Dental that we have seen a sketch plan on for that piece of property. The car wash is on the south side. So we have seen a sketch plan for Batten Dental, but I don't believe it's gone through the process. But there is a proposed development plan in the works on that.
And
Is
so
that
the
the one
tire
beside
dealership is the building that is shown there, or is it in the next block?
Right here is where Mavis Tire is, and we have seen
Okay,
a
that's what I
sketch
thought.
plan. We've seen
Thought
a
that was the
sketch
building.
plan for Batten Dental on this piece of property.
Okay. All right. That helps me. Mr. Linville, questions?
That lot, parcel,
This one?
don't it have access right at the corner of, right there?
Yeah, it would access via the internal, and via Pearl View Drive, which is internal to the project.
You know, it sounds to me like the people that we've had speak are all saying, we need a little more time. What's your opinion? If we put this
That's
off
a political
until
decision.
April, let's
I
just
don't want to
say,
weasel out, but I mean, again, basically, if the commissioners feel that they need more additional information related to the traffic study that the town of Walkertown is in the process of working on with a private consultant, then that's certainly within your purview.
if I suggested, for example, that we take this, put in April 15th, that's a tax deadline, but April 15th, would that give enough time to you and to the town of Walkertown to examine this and come back with some idea of what they really want to do? They haven't got the whole shebang lined up yet, I don't think.
There's one thing that's important to note. I do as well as I can in trying to present transportation issues. I am not a transportation planner. I'm a land use planner and administrator of planning initiatives and those kind of things. I'm not a traffic expert. So again, the study that the town of Walkertown is going, that they're working on with their consultant, if there's anything that needs to be reviewed coming out of that, we would have to have the Winston-Salem DOT that serves as our MPO to take a look at it. And I suppose we could also have NCDOT take a look at it. But again, that's not our area of expertise. Our area of expertise is dealing with land use. And again, we can look at proposed traffic generation. We can look at sidewalks. We can tell you what the plans are for a section of road, but we're not traffic engineers. So, again, I want to hesitate. I want to make sure that folks understand that we can have someone that perhaps look at that for us, but that's not our area of expertise.
But it still seems to me that there are a lot of unanswered questions, and it wouldn't hurt to at least continue this until a later date. That's my opinion based on what I've heard. I mean, if all the speakers did say, we don't really need a continuance, that's one thing, but none of them said that, including you, as far as that's concerned. Mr. Chairman, would it be appropriate to go ahead and suggest that we put this off until April 15th?
I actually think there might be more questions
Yeah.
that need to be answered. I mean, just to give everybody a chance to ask questions before there's any kind of actions.
Okay.
So additional questions that we may have.
I do. Mr. Snow, how long do you anticipate this study would take and when it would be implemented?
According to the traffic engineers that we're working with, they say they need approximately about 6 weeks to prepare the traffic analysis for this site. It may not include the entire study scope that we're doing at that for this whole corridor, but they believe if we expand the scope to do a traffic analysis for this proposed site, they're aware of this and have already seen it, so they know what's being proposed. So they believe they would be able to do the traffic data acquisition and provide analysis for it within 6 weeks. I proposed in the memo that we sent for March 30th, because I think that would be your next date if we were able to deliver it within that time. Certainly, if we have it done sooner, we'll send it along to Chris and the folks to take a look at and get it to you as soon as we can. But I spoke with them yesterday afternoon, and they said that they think the timeline would be approximately 6 weeks to have that report ready to present to the town and to the commissioners.
So we should be able to have it at our briefing the week before, which would be the 23rd.
That's our hope, yes. Yeah.
Any other questions?
I do.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Could I ask you, you've already had an extension once, is that correct?
Thank you, Commissioner. We asked for a delay of our own accord so that we could address community concerns about this private easement that were vetted out, from us seeking community input. And we wanted to take the time to amend our site plan, which staff would, of course, then need to review. So yes, that precipitated a continuance from the November Planning Board hearing to the December Planning Board hearing because we were redrawing our site plan. The difference here is a couple things. This is distinguishable on two fronts that I see. Number one is your trip generation data. It's de minimis. And what I mean by that is that the numbers generated by this proposal are not going to factor in to a traffic study in any significant way. So the only thing this traffic consultant can do is use the trip generation numbers from the ITG manual, which is the same thing your staff has already done. The delta on the trip generation between our proposal and between what the single-family zoning would have to be in an area that has sewer is 265 trips per day. It's not going to change a traffic study. So I think waiting on numbers that we know are not going to have a significant impact on the output of a study, I don't think makes a lot of sense when you've got parties and contracts in place that are waiting to do business and have followed the process correctly. Secondarily, while I understand things need to be studied, and certainly we're always in the business of more information. That said, it is not North Carolina law, practice, or procedure to put a development moratorium in place de facto while we do those things. A development moratorium is a statutory process that has to happen correctly, and it needs to say, here's the public interest of why we need to stop things while we look at this stuff, and here's the notice for that, here's why it's happening, here's the criteria, here's the alternatives that have been examined, and now we've adopted a moratorium. That hasn't happened here. But this today is a de facto moratorium. It's saying, hey, let's stop, wait, not do anything until we have the benefit of a study that's looking at something else. And that's just not how we do development here. We have followed the correct process. The input that's being waited upon is not going to change because the proposal is so de minimis. 100 townhomes just don't produce that many trips per day. 265 more trips per day than the number of single-family homes here would produce. So I just don't find it compelling that we need to wait on that data and would hope that we could proceed. Thank you so much for hearing me.
I'd like to ask City Manager Snow a couple just follow-up questions. I'll just preface it with the comment that was just made, and I apologize for not catching your name when you said it.
Hodier, Amanda Hodier.
Amanda.
Hodier.
Still haven't got the last name.
That's my daughter's name.
Hodiern.
Hodier. I apologize. Thank you. So just based on what she just said about the de minimis traffic piece, the question kind of becomes, if the traffic counts are already available with same studies and same anything, I'm really interested in what the city of Walkertown is asking the consultant to provide.
We believe what they'll be able to provide is a traffic impact analysis. If I'm aware that one has not been done for this proposal, and the petitioner has had time to do that, but they've not provided it to the planning board staff or the commissioners. So that will be the focus of it. And we've got broader interests in our work that we're doing with the contractor, but since this has come up and it is going to impact what we have with our future plans for this corridor, we'll ask them to do that traffic impact analysis for it, which is not an unusual thing to ask for in a rezoning process, especially one that's going to increase density, and everyone is acknowledging it's going to increase the traffic volume on this corridor here that's already over capacity. That's not an unusual thing to ask for a petitioner to provide. So we believe it will be that the information that will be provided to Commissioner will be a professional traffic impact analysis from the contractors.
And do you know the expected completion dates of the two state projects, both the 158 widening and the Old Hollow Road 66 widening?
The let date now is the date is 2024. There's no month or day associated with either one of those projects. Just broad 2024 is the let date. NCDOT is doing the right-of-way acquisition currently, but that's why that's been delayed further out is the allowed time for right-of-way acquisition and utility removal. Both of those projects are significant projects that are going to take multiple years to complete. So completion may be 26, 27, but both of them are running at the same time. So there is going to be a period where there are major traffic disruption in the Walkertown area because of those two projects while they're under construction.
I can see that. That's my question. Any other questions?
I got questions, but I believe Mr. Bessie does. Go ahead.
Sorry. Excuse me, Dan.
Thank you, Mr. Linville. And I imagine Mr. Linville already knows these answers, but I need to ask. The intersection of 66 and 158, I'm trying to recall, that is signalized, isn't it?
That's correct, yes.
But it is not signalized at 66 and Walkertown Common Circle.
It is not. We've approached DOT about that, about putting a signal there, and they say that that's not feasible. A signal there at that intersection would back up traffic into the 158 intersection. So that's the purpose of our study, is to find what options we have there. Without signalizing it is not on the table, so what options do we have to address the traffic issues there?
All right. And is the area that's for which rezoning is requested served by public sewer now?
It is not, no. The sewer lines will have to be extended to that property.
All right. And would there be any legal requirement for the town or the county to extend public sewer lines to that property?
The town does have an agreement with city-county utilities that does address a situation where the sewer is extended outside of the town limits. That was part of the agreement. Basically, any municipality, I think, in Forsyth County has the same one with CCUC that was a part of extending it. So that is in question of whether there is any legal status to the town's interests on the extension of the sewer. But at this point, we're discussing zoning traffic impacts. So the sewer aspect is an issue that the town and CCUC.
Well, I raised the question because one of the arguments that the petitioner's attorney is making is that despite the fact there's been no professional traffic analysis made, that because a publicly sewered single-family development could take place at a density that the added traffic impact is arguably de minimis, that would suggest that the county cannot legally consider I disagree with that argument, by the way, but I just want to make sure if the facts are in evidence on which the argument is made, and it does not appear to me that they are. I think those are the questions I had. Thank you.
Additional questions? We'll look slowly this time.
Richard, you have any?
Yes. I guess part of what I got to say is observation and maybe a question for Chris. Going through it, saying I tried to memorize it, but I couldn't memorize all of it. Can't do that no more. The traffic volume, it's right at capacity, according to the write-up, maybe a little over. It's a little under, I believe. You remember the number right off? I found the number in here one time, and then I went back through it 3 more times and couldn't find it.
It is, I have it actually, I just looked at it a second. The average daily trip count is 15,500, and capacity at level of service D on that section is 15,800, so it's slightly under.
Okay.
And I didn't have my microphone on, sorry. Did everyone hear that?
Actually, I would appreciate your repeating.
Okay. Yeah, I neglected to turn it on. The traffic count on that section of Old Hollow Road, NC 66, is 15,500. And the capacity before it reaches level of service D in that same area is 15,800. So there's 300 additional trip capacity in that section before it goes to level of service D. I did want to point out the one thing about the traffic impact analysis and the fact that one wasn't done is it's not required by the ordinance. It doesn't mean that they couldn't have done one, but there are specific standards in the appendix of the UDO that specifies when a traffic impact analysis has to be completed for a project, and this did not trigger that. So it wasn't that they didn't do it in ignoring something they were told. It's not required.
Okay. Just knowing the area pretty good. The traffic is in the mornings and in the evening. I wouldn't, in particular the evening, I wouldn't call it just gridlock. It's locked down from the traffic time in the mornings and the evenings. And 158 is just about as bad, but they're going to work on that and relieve it on 158 going east from the stoplight. It backs all the way up to Vance Road, which is about a mile. Of course, we're talking about 66, but all that traffic together, it's never going to be any better, but they're going to work on it on 158, but until they got some extra lanes where that traffic can disperse out of there, it's just not going to be any better. Mr. Bessie mentioned about stoplight on 66 there somewhere close to the shopping centers. Most time they won't put up stoplights until it's just intolerable. And stoplights, they impede the traffic too. And what we need there is just to get the traffic out of here. I would say that even though that there would be delays, I think that whatever information they get out of the study, I think Walkertown will do what they want to with it, give it to the DOT, and it might cost the DOT to look at things differently, and we, the county, on our part of it, we need to ask for extension further, a little further down to where that white dot is below, or maybe a little further, but for multi-lanes, and that little white dot below the property in question is a old store building just going downhill. If the traffic problems there is going to get worse, and so I think the information from their traffic I think would be of value, but I'll say it again, that we, at some point in the near future, need to contact DOT and see if, and the good time is going to be, it's when they're working, they've, in the very early stages on the 158 project in some places, just doing some right-of-way work. But that work that they're going to do on 66 on both sides is going to improve it. And that would be the time to improve widening 66 a little further. And whether we can convince them or not, I don't know.
Let me ask City Manager Snow a question about, when you get to study back, you're obviously anticipating your own planning in Walkertown and your investment. Is it likely that the city of Walkertown, assuming we've heard that at the moment, we know where the state ends their widening project, we know that's out in 26 or 27, knowing what I think all of us know about the ability to do just exactly what Commissioner Linville talked about is probably slim and none in the near future. So the question I have is, are you all prepared to respond in any way to do some traffic work yourself?
That would be the point of doing the study, to see what options are there to do at that intersection and in this corridor. So the town is part of the MPO, and the MPO funds, projects through funds that they receive through the state and federal highway funding. So there's an opportunity there for us to do that, but it requires to have a plan in place to show what potential solutions there are to solve these issues and possibly get the project onto the STIP list that would extend it beyond what the current plans are. So that's the process is to formulate a plan, a professional plan from traffic engineers that show what the potential projects could be there to address the issues, and then go through the process with working with the MPO or possibly with the state to get those projects built out.
And this is only a curiosity question, but this discussion of this development has been going on for a while. Have you just now engaged your traffic engineers? A reason you maybe didn't do that 2 months ago?
A bit of the hope was that the petitioner would provide it. That would have been a benefit to the town because that would have given us data on our study, but that didn't happen. So now that we have the final plan that we believe this will be on this proposed rezoning, we can provide that to the traffic engineers, and they could model that into what we've been in talks with the engineers for a while. It's been on our schedule to be done. But now that we're aware of what this project is, as well as other projects in the commercial centers, as I said, the cookouts under construction, the car wash, the dental office now, and there's also a larger retail space that's a vendor that's looking at other areas of the shopping centers. We have a better idea what we're getting close to having that commercial area finished out. So we've got a better idea of what we need to plan for through there.
All righty. Last call. Any more questions? All right. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, well, first of all, I do need to close the hearing, but if you got a question before that, go ahead.
No.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, if the board wishes to proceed and to vote on this today, you would have a motion to close. If not, you would have a motion to continue the hearing to a specific date and time.
Thanks for that clarification. So we need to consider that first. Is there a motion to continue the hearing till March 30th?
Mr. Chairman, I would so move, and that the hearing be held open for the provision of additional information at that continued date.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Commissioner Linville. Any other discussion?
I would. I'd just like to say I will vote against that motion. I think it's unfair to ask these folks to get another extension when this was not part of the standard for them to get the zoning to begin with. And I do think that Walkertown was hoping that the petitioner would do the study rather than them. And I think you've had ample time to do the study, Mr. Mr. Snow, and so I'll vote in opposition.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Motion carries 6-1. Righty. We will return. All righty. Now, I'd answer that question. All right, sorry. So the next item on the agenda is a public hearing on the zoning petition of the Winston-Salem-Forsyth County Board of Education from RS9 to IP. And we've been briefed on this a couple of times, and now we'll get a review by Mr. Murphy.
Good afternoon again. Let's see if this one is a little less controversial. Again, this is a petition of the Winston-Salem-Forsyth County Board of Education for a 45 approximately acre site located on the east side of Fraternity Church Road at its intersection with Hope Church Road. And this is a general use request from RS9 to IP. Here is the subject property shown on the Legacy Growth Management Area plan for the county. It's located within the GMA3 Suburban Neighborhoods Growth Management Area there, close to South Stratford Road. Here is the subject property shown in yellow. You notice the long extension, the driveway that goes out to the Fraternity Church Road and Hope Church Road roundabout intersection. And the subject property is developed with both a middle school and an elementary school. Subject property outlined in yellow on the countywide aerial imagery. You see those existing schools, you see the roundabout, you see some of the industrial properties there along Hope Church Road. You see South Stratford Road 158 as it goes from Winston-Salem into Clemens in that area. And then, of course, Fraternity Church Road as it goes back through what I would call more of the rural countryside back to the southeast. This is looking east into the site from the traffic circle at Fraternity Church Road and Hope Church Road. This is the area plan map. This is the Southwest Suburban Area Plan Update, which was adopted by the commissioners back in 2015. It shows the subject property with institutional public or institutional recommended land use, and that is what they are requesting is the IP, which is institutional public zoning district. So their request is consistent with what the area plan recognizes as the existing land use. Schools are allowed in the institutional and public zoning district. They're allowed in a lot of the commercial zoning districts, and they're also allowed in residential zoning. So the school isn't non-conforming where it is, but they are requesting a zoning district that gets them in conformity with the institutional use. In summary, the request is consistent with the recommendations of the area plan and Legacy 2030. There are no anticipated traffic impacts associated with this request. The proposed district is compatible with the existing land use and the surrounding land use pattern. This was heard by the Planning Board at their December 8th, 2022 public hearing. There were no speakers in opposition, and the Planning Board did vote unanimously to recommend approval of this request to the commissioners. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions, and I will go back to the aerial photo in case there are any questions.
Any questions for Chris?
All right, thank you.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Speakers will have up to 15 minutes total to speak in favor of this request and up to 15 minutes total to speak in opposition. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of the petition? Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the petition? I will declare the public hearing closed and would be happy to entertain a motion.
Chairman, if I may, I move that zoning map amendment F-1625 be approved on the basis of the following. The purpose, general use zoning map amendment as petitioned by the Winston-Salem-Forsyth County Board of Education to rezone a 45.9 acre piece of property from RS9 to IP institutional and public is consistent with the recommendations of the Legacy Comprehensive Plan and reasonable or in the public's interest because, one, the subject property, the site of Clemens Middle School and Ward Elementary School located at 3775 and 3785 Fraternity Church Road in Clemens is currently zoned RS9 and is adjacent to the near property zone RS9, LI, LIS, and LB, where nearby uses consisting of single-family houses, industrial businesses, and small businesses, and a transmission tower and a church. Number 2, the purpose of the IP zoning is intended to accommodate public and institutional uses which have a limited land use impact or traffic generation potential, including surrounding uses and is appropriate to be located in or near residential areas. And 3, the proposed IP zoning is consistent with the Southwest Area Plan Update, which recommends institutional use for the site, and the subject property is located on the Growth Management Area Number 3, and the proposed zoning is consistent with the Legacy Comprehensive Plan with the approximate zoning and surrounding uses. Thank you.
We have a motion by Commissioner McDaniel. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Wizenhunt. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. The next item on the agenda is a resolution adopting the revised rules of procedure for Forsyth County Board of Commissioners meetings. We have reviewed this at some length, I guess, in the last 2 weeks to look at. Any discussion? Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Approved by Commissioner Bessie,
Second.
second by Commissioner McDaniel. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes for the meeting of January 19th, 2023. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
So moved by Commissioner Plyler. Second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Wizenhunt. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Madam Clerk, do we have any calls or cards for the public session?
Mr. Chairman, we do not.
We do not. Well, Mr. Manager,
Can we take a break? 5 minutes?
take a 5-minute break. Take a 5-minute break.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I can beat you.
meeting.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon, board members and staff and guests. We do have some just general business items for consideration this afternoon. We have reviewed these at least twice in sessions, and hopefully have answered all the questions. Item 5 is an amendment to the 2016 Schools Capital Projects Ordinance. It would appropriate $100,000 toward design of a new Ashley Elementary School and $350,000 for East Forsyth High School, and it is a reallocation of funds.
Do we have a motion? I'll make that
To
motion.
approve.
I'll make the motion.
Move to approve. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I didn't
Either way, it doesn't matter. We're good.
Motion by Commissioner McDaniel. I'll second that motion. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
We have 4 contractual matters. Item 6 is a resolution ratifying and authorizing execution of an interlocal agreement between Forsyth County and the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Board of Education for implementation of the Be Healthy School Kids program. It is a non-revenue associated just interlocal agreement that outlines responsibilities.
Move approval.
Motion approved by Vice Chairman Wizenhunt, second by Commissioner Bessie. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
All right, agenda item 7 is a resolution approving a contract to provide Wi-Fi services to the Tanglewood Park Campground. It is a 75-month term lease not to exceed $102,225, which essentially equates to $16,380 a month.
Move approval.
Motion approved by Commissioner Plyler,
Second.
second by Vice Chair Wizenhunt. Any discussion? I'd just like to say a special thank you for resolving this issue. I think we have a less expensive solution and a good one. So, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item 8 is a resolution approving a contract with Sierra Cedar LLC to provide optimization and consultative services for the Oracle Cloud solution. We need some funds there to the extent we need to get some services as we get through the implementation of this. It's not to exceed $90,000 just for a one-year term.
Move approval.
Motion approved by Commissioner Plyler,
Second.
second by Commissioner McDaniel. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item 9 is a resolution authorizing execution of an agreement with Dreambuilt Construction Incorporated for pickleball court construction at Joni Moser Memorial Park. 9 courts, the not-to-exceed amount is $317,563.
Move approval.
Approved by Commissioner Plyler,
Second.
second by Vice Chair Wizenhunt. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Item 10 are the appointments by the board and is sort of managed by the chair, and I appreciate that work. It's a resolution approving the 2023 Commissioners Committee Appointment Summary.
Motion approved by Commissioner Bessie,
Second.
second by Commissioner McDaniel. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Items 11, 12, and 13 are resolutions approving refunds by the tax assessor in the amount of $28,954.39, $381, and $12,528.23. I believe you can take them all together.
Move approval.
Motion approved by Commissioner Plyler,
Second.
second by Commissioner Linville. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
And the last item is a report. It's the December 2022 contribution-based benefit cap report.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion approved by Commissioner Plyler, second by Commissioner Linville. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
And that is it for the formal session. We can adjourn if you wish, and we can go in straight in a briefing session.
Move adjourned.
Mr. Manager, I actually have one special item that I would like to mention here to all folks. It's actually an opportunity to say a special thank you to Commissioner Plyler for his work as a chairman for a 10-year period. And I just wanted to say to begin with that I was very pleased to serve as your vice chair for 8 of those years of your 10. And I certainly appreciate all the work you've done. Been a good friend over the years. And I happen to have a proclamation that I'd like to read for you.
Does it carry money with it?
I think this one is an honorary proclamation with no
That's
funds.
good, honorary.
However, I believe when I finish, I believe our county manager may have something of more tangible value that actually the proclamation would fit into.
Well, I appreciate that, it's very kind.
That's good. All right. Here is the proclamation. It says, a proclamation recognizing the accomplishments of David R. Plyler as chairman of the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners. Whereas David R. Plyler, who is a native of Orange County, California, longtime resident of Kernersville, was first elected to the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners in November 1994 and has ably served the citizens of Forsyth County as chairman since 2014. Whereas Commissioner Plyler honorably served in the United States Air Force 1960 to 1964, where he worked in the Air Command and Armed Forces Radio and Television. Whereas Commissioner Plyler has served the citizens of Forsyth County since 1960 through his broadcasting career at WSJS Radio and WXII Channel 12, as well as Radio WTOB, Salem Media, and Truth Broadcasting. Whereas Commissioner Plyler has served on the boards of Novant Health, YMCA, and Northwest North Carolina, and IFB Solutions, Governor's Task Force on Osteoporosis, Forsyth County Board of Public Health, National Association of Counties, North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, the National YMCA Board of North Carolina, Energy Policy Commission, Crime Stoppers, Blumenthal Jewish Home for the Aged Inc., and the Kernersville Lions Club. It's a mouthful. Whereas Commissioner Plyler is a lifetime member of OASIS Shrine 32, degree Mason, member of the Kernersville Chamber of Commerce, and a member of the Kernersville United Methodist Church. Whereas Commissioner Plyler is the recipient of the Abe Lincoln Award for Exceptional Broadcasting, the Humanitarian Award from the North Carolina Association of Black County Officials, the Community Service Award from the Kernersville Chamber of Commerce, and was recognized as Outstanding County Commissioner in 2003 by the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. Therefore, be it resolved that the Forsyth County Commissioners hereby recognize the exemplary service and accomplishments of Commissioner David R. Plyler, thank him for his outstanding distinguished service as chairman of the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners on this second day of February 2023, and I'll make that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner McDaniel. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Congratulations for your service, and I believe,
You have two goodies.
two things. All right.
Is that a pizza?
Courtesy of our park.
All righty, this is great. It's great. Anybody else like to say a word or two?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Well, how about we just follow later?
How about, I'm sorry.
Ready for me?
Yes, go right ahead.
There we go.
Well, you, no need of me going over all of that stuff. Just, I do like, no, I ain't gonna do exactly what the famed football player said. I'll get right to it. I'm not gonna retire, but thank you for all the work you've done over the years and all that stuff that's in there that he read through. So I won't go through all that. Thank you.
I'd like to say, Dave, thank you so much for being a fair and a diplomatic chairman while you were here. And before I even became a commissioner, there were things that were done for me, seen and unseen. So I wanted to say thank you. And always thank you for allowing me to whine good and having wine while we talk about good things. So thank you. Blessings to you.
It just gets better and better, doesn't it?
Thank you so much, Dave. We appreciate everything you've done for Forsyth County. Thank you.
We ran together in 1994. You remember that?
Well, you ran in 94, I ran in 96, but we almost ran
On the
together.
school board in 94, so you had to hire me.
Oh, I missed it by 2 years.
I just want to recall that I believe we have known each other since the mid-'90s when we used to exchange middle-aged advice on exercise tips at what was then the Central Y.
Yes, sir.
And I have always been a bipartisan admirer of your good work on the commission.
Appreciate that.
Commissioner Plowler, I would just like to say congratulations on your tenure here on the board, and being recognized today is what the congratulations is about. Serving as the chair, it is hard work. Trying to, as I once heard it say, keep all the frogs from jumping out the bucket and doing the work. And you have done it with such grace and honor and kindness, which I think all of us can appreciate, and I think this community appreciates. And I would be remiss if I did not recognize publicly that before we could pass the quarter-cent sales tax, all of us worked so hard, on the school board side and the county commissioner side. But I would be remiss if I did not tell Dave Plowler, thank you for taking the time to personally meet with myself and some of the school board members to get us all on one accord so that we could get this bond passed to support our teachers in Winston-Salem, Forsyth County. So I always thank you for that service that you did not have to do to make sure we could get this passed. So thank you again for your service to this community.
Appreciate that.
I'm going to come give you these things, and then you can say something.
Oh.
First of all, you notice the workmanship in this.
Oh, yeah. Did you make that?
No, your county manager.
Congratulations. Let me hold that.
Which is great. That's great.
Tell me when to put it down.
Now, take a look at this.
Oh, boy.
In fact, I'll have to do the same thing as you. This is David R. Plowler, Chairman of Forsyth County Board of Education, 2014-2020.
Did you say I was chairman of the Board of Education?
I said that.
Oh.
It says Board of Commissioners. I'm used to saying that.
Okay. All right. There you go. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Now, you can yell it. Clap, and then you can say,
Now, let me make a couple of comments. First of all, I learned a long time ago that you don't win any friends if you're negative. And I have lived with, and I don't announce it publicly because it's something that's personal, but LOVE is what I do with you guys. I love the Board of Commissioners. And I knew you before I came here because I was interviewing commissioners before, later, and da-da-da-da-da for WXII's 6 o'clock news, 11 o'clock news, and then we'd bring you in for our Meet the Press type show, which was, it still is, Report to the People. But I'm certainly not an individual. I'm just one of those people that I feel like I've had some love returned to me today that I didn't expect, and I greatly appreciate. And finally, the only reason I was able to do this is because I'm an absolute 150% believer in family. And I was married to a sweet farmer's daughter who could cook, sew, can. She raised our 2 daughters. She worked for the district attorney for years. And it couldn't have been done without, as far as I was concerned. I was gone a lot. But she allowed me to do that. And I appreciate my wife. But thank you.
thank you, Dave. Now, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved by Commissioner Plowler. I'll second that. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
So I want to go ahead and dive into the items for consideration February 16th. We can do that. The only other item I was going to mention, a little bit of follow-up to the town hall meeting that we had, and then talk a little bit about next Thursday, because we have one of those morning sessions next Thursday, so I was going to bring everybody up to speed. But so I'll handle the introduction to the items for the February 16th, 2023 meeting. Kyle Haney is here. The first item on the agenda is a public hearing to consider the expenditure of county general funds for an economic development project and authorizing execution of agreement with a company. You had some discussions in closed session about it. Kyle got some information through the amazing technology. He let me know that we may I'll
Yeah.
let you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This happened about 10 minutes ago. They asked to delay the item for another cycle or two, so we will not be briefing that this cycle. Sorry about that.
So we have one less item on the agenda that we will introduce next Thursday formally. Item 2 is approval of the minutes of the meeting we just had. Item 3 is, let me see how many I got. Actually, items 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 are all budget and finance amendments. Item 3 is a capital maintenance 2/3 bond capital project ordinance with some transfer of funds. That is actually establishing the 2/3 bonds projects for the next for this next issuance that we're going to do in the spring, and there are going to be a lot of budget items, or a lot of items related to those bonds that will come in front of this board. Item 4 is 2016 Forsyth Technical Community College Capital Projects Ordinance. It will also align project cost from those bonds, so it's really more housekeeping matters. Item 5 is also a housekeeping matter on the 2022 PAYGO Capital Projects Ordinance. There's about $6,300 that aren't really capital, so we're going to transfer it back to the general fund. Item 6 is an amendment to the 2020 Motor Vehicles and Mobile Equipment Replacement Capital Projects Ordinance. Essentially, that has a couple of elements. Periodically when vehicles get damaged and their insurance proceeds, we recognize those insurance proceeds, which is what will be happening here. And then there's also a transfer related to non-capital items like equipment that goes in the vehicles, and we often have to transfer that back into the general fund just because it's not capitalized. Item 7, we will probably get into a lot of detail on. What you will see is our proposed budget for us taking over the shelter operations. And so Damon's been working with a bunch of folks throughout this organization to get that together to present to you. So we will present that to you formally next Thursday. Item 8 is an appropriation of $121,850 of reserved MOE. We call it MOE money, but it's the behavioral health dollars that we're required to spend for those purposes. A reserve does get built up from time to time. We're going to ask the board to use some of that money to fix up the old Willie M. home, which we're trying to transition into a DSS group home, which would be a 24-hour residential facility for qualifying youth in DSS custody. And so that project's been on the books for a while. We're excited to get it, get some improvements there, and then we are looking for an operator of that facility, trying to work through that. So you'll hear a lot about that. I got a couple of grants items. Item 9 is a resolution accepting funds from the North Carolina Department of Commerce for water and sewer infrastructure for a project at Tanglewood Business Park. That is the $2.4 million that we were fortunate enough to get in maybe the year ago cycle of funding from the state. And so we'll recognize that, and we can bring you up to speed on where we are with that project and what that might look like. Kyle Haney's done a lot of work on that. And then you've got an amendment to the fiscal year 23 budget to appropriate North Carolina Department of Commerce 1 NC grant funds to NELOPAC. And that, as we always do, we are the recipient of pass-through dollars oftentimes from the state for economic development. And so that's one of those. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ARPA items. We are working through both round 1 and round 2. We're almost completely done with round 1, and we're about half done with round 2. So you've got some ARPA items, and those are essentially approval of the agreements. You've already approved the funding for the different recipients through the ARPA process. We've been, that process to get those contracts together really is where we start articulating what the metrics that we're going to try to track for each one of these are, and so that's where we identify that. And so you will see those. You do have some contracts, 3 items related to that. The purchase of equipment to upfit Ford Interceptors, which I think relates to the where we're moving that money for that equipment, because we do. If you drive through Liberty Street, you see we've taken delivery of some of those Ford Interceptors that the board approved us purchasing. We finally did get a car in, so there's a reason to celebrate with that. And now we just need to get them upfitted. Item 18 is buying some air quality monitoring equipment. We're asking you to do that under a exception to the bidding laws because all that equipment that we have needs to operate kind of in conjunction with the current equipment that we have. And so Minor will go through that with you. We also are going to purchase some Microsoft subscription software services. That's our big Microsoft enterprise agreement, and Gary Kuntz will take us through that. 2 property matters. You've got a lease agreement for the 741 Highland Avenue Center. That's the center, that's that facility that was actually built by CenterPoint. It was a ground lease to us. When CenterPoint dismantled, we actually took ownership of the building. And so one of the, it goes way back, but one of the sort of operating considerations that we always had is that where we lease straight, where there was a direct lease with our LME MCO, it was essentially a at-cost lease or dollar lease. In this particular case, and Kirby will talk about it next Thursday, they do pay us kind of the operating cost of that back, and so so you'll hear that. And then he's been busily working on this really complicated project where we're purchasing the property up at 7212 Doral Drive for the agricultural park up there. We are selling some property to facilitate the intersection improvements there on Haynes Mill Boulevard. And so because of the complexity of that easement that we had, we need a little bit more time. And so Kirby's been doing great work on that, and that will essentially allow us to help DOT move that other project forward. They'll pay us for it, and it'll essentially offset the cost of buying that property. And so a lot of moving parts.
Basically the old Clydeum site?
Yes, that's exactly it.
Or it's the current Clydeum site, but soon to be old.
Right. I'd probably call it the old now because the new one's looking pretty good. So we're in good shape there, and that's kind of it for that meeting. It's kind of a meaty agenda, probably the item I know there'll be a lot of interest in is our strategy and how we're going to put together
Could you
the budget.
tell me that I did something I shouldn't have done?
What did you do?
I might not have should have done, but I'm on the board of IFB Solutions, and they're looking for some pretty hefty grant money to continue their program for the blind. And I suggested they call Dudley Watts, county manager, and tell them that Plyler told me about ARCA, and there may be a possibility that we still have some left over. So I'm not sure if they call you, if we have any money left over. I should ask him.
Yeah, so we've closed out both rounds, as we really closed out both rounds, and then we've got that strategy to use whatever's not spent, we would apply to revenue loss and be able to close everything out on the 2024. But we do have our normal opportunities where agencies can apply for funds, and is that open right now, Kyle?
It is open. If they just go to the Forsyth website, there's a link on the main website to do that.
If somebody says, we'd like for consideration for the county for funding, really that's the avenue now. We don't have a separate ARPA thing anymore. But.
Well, as a sidelight, IFB Solutions has a new president and chief executive officer, and he's totally blind, and his name is Dan Kelly.
I know Dan Kelly. Yeah. He's a nice guy. Really.
So Dudley, while we're here, just really quick, I would like us to consider possibly maybe getting a spreadsheet in terms of where we are with the ARPA funding. Is everybody out the door, where they are, so that we can at least have some concessions about what we want to do if there's some availability.
Yeah, so that's a great, I appreciate you saying that because I can really kind of transition to next Thursday morning. So we'll be in here, I think, 10 o'clock for one of those morning sessions. And it's going to be a busy morning, so it's going to be a long day. But you're going to have
Tuesday?
Thursday. So it'll just be Thursday heading into the briefing. And so on that Thursday, we've got Forsyth Tech, we've got the Winston Center for Forsyth County Schools. Chris is going to do a kind of a planning update. We wanted to go ahead and do that because, planning and economic development really is going to be on the winter work session, and thought that getting a planning update about pace of development, and all that would be helpful. Partners Behavioral Health is going to come in, do their very brief, quarterly update. And then we do have, the sheriff has asked to come in and conversations with the chair, and that this avenue made more sense to do it in the morning session than it did at the winter work session. And so, so he's going to come in and has some things he just wants a little bit of your time on Thursday morning. And then ARPA update is the last one. And so all the, Aisha and Kim and everybody else is working on getting that data together. And we've actually got a dashboard together that I think will be, we are going to have a sort of a whole ARPA kind of site that really has a lot of information there. You saw where our communications folks are working on videos. We actually have them going in, doing videos and doing little 5-minute segments on each one of the 30-some awards and 30-some odd projects. And so we will have a very comprehensive way to communicate to the citizenry about what we did with ARPA. So we're, on the front end here, we're doing the explanation of what you funded and what the results are hopefully going to be, and then we'll do a follow-up, toward the end of it as they close them out. So it'll be a really comprehensive site, and you'll be able to see all those kind of questions. How much, where are we on the spend, and all those kinds of things. And we were almost, some of these contracts were really hard to get nailed down, largely because of making sure while you funded the project, the ARPA rules really do ask us to have very concrete deliverables and have concrete reporting. What they're going to report back to us has to be really stipulated in the contract. And so Gordon's folks and everybody have been working to make that happen. So when you read one of those contracts, they're very comprehensive.
Good. Commissioner Bessie, you had a comment?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to go back to item 7, the resolution to create and staff a new animal services department. To the extent that you have the information now, I'd be interested in hearing it, but if not, I'll be interested in hearing it at the second briefing in more detail. Do you have a ballpark budget for what you expect for the remainder of the year and what you would forecast on an annualized basis?
So if I could interject, for 6 months, it's approximately $640,000, but $120,000 of that is transfers back into animal services. It's already in the budget that we transferred to the sheriff's office for the small animal welfare section that we still maintained. So it's of new money, it's $530,000, something like that, for a 6-month period. Now, it'll be more like a quarter that we're fully operating it. However, we'll have to start this month buying supplies and equipment, hiring staff toward the end of the month to shadow who's already there at the Humane Society. We're in conversations with them too. We're buying computer software. We're putting in all the underpinnings to be ready on April 1st.
So on an annualized basis, operating expenses, do you have a forecast at this point?
Of new money, it would be about $1 million.
Yeah, it's a little more complicated than, so what happened, even though Humane Society managed the shelter, there were still parts of it that had to be managed by the sheriff around evidence animals, and so there were some inefficiencies built into going to the Humane Society because there's things they couldn't really do for us. When we go back and pick it back up, we actually pick those efficiencies back up. And so it's going to, because there's no reason at that point for us to have the sheriff have some of it and us have some of it. We'll have it all. So,
and also we'll need to also outfit the facility with some things that we haven't been purchasing because the Humane Society's been doing it. So we're at basically zero, so we're having to just resupply, which when the new fiscal year starts, we will have some left over from the current fiscal year.
May I, in addition, at this point, do you anticipate proposing that we do an adoption services entirely in-house, or do you anticipate a contracting basis as well, that there would be funding available in the budget for contracting for adoption services with potentially multiple private nonprofits in the area that are already working in that area?
So how we did that in the past was organizations could come to the shelter and see animals that they were interested in taking and adopting. So we would transfer them to those organizations to then adopt them out as they chose. So that could be a number of organizations that would do that. And then we also did adoptions as well when they were at capacity at their facilities and with their resources, and we still had animals that were adoptable. We would also continue to do adoptions. So for now, we do that. The optimal method of operations, if they have capacity, is the other organizations could do the adoptions and fosters for themselves and on our behalf, so we wouldn't be competing for the same animals at our shelter. And the ones that are left are the ones that the other organizations didn't want, which kind of leads to a higher or a lower than we desired live release rate, because we are left with the animals that everybody else didn't want to take.
I was just thinking that it might make sense to incorporate budgeting option for contract basis for some of the adoption services. And that was the only suggestion I had. I mean, frankly, looking at the attempted renegotiation of a new contract, it seemed that the single most problematic item in Mr. Neff's negotiating position was the position that what services the county paid for was absolutely non-negotiable on their part. And when you have public safety services that you are statutorily obligated to provide in any event, it's a dangerous situation to have your contractor be effectively saying we are holding hostage the seamless continuation of obligatory public safety functions to reaching an agreement on what other services the county will pay for and how much. But that being a real problem in the negotiation of a completely new contract doesn't mean that it might not also be to the advantage of the public interest for us to incorporate an ongoing contract basis adoption services to facilitate maximizing adoptions of adoptable animals.
And I actually sort of envisioned we'd be moving in that maybe not quite, we would not be adopting animals. In fact, I was quoted in the paper, I got about a zillion emails about, I don't know anything what I'm talking about. The issue was to try to keep us from being duplicating and or competing, ever how you want to say it, with anyone else. And we've got to be clear how we're counting. I mean, clearly, they'll be monitoring in our publication of the kill rate is the issue, and I think the point is every animal that comes into the shelter is a part of the denominator. I mean they're there, and then when they go to anywhere else, as we would transfer whatever we may do, they don't go, they stay on our list. I mean, kind of as they go. So we know how many animals have been through there and what we have dealt with in terms of euthanasia, and we're able to calculate that. So I think that's got to be clear from the get-go. And I do think that we don't need to compete, and we don't need to create a separate process and having people walk through and look at animals. It seems to me there's a lot better way to do that with the animal welfare agencies that actually do, and that's where people go to kind of to shop the animals that are available. Maybe I don't know if others share that or whatever, but we can talk about that a lot more next week. Commissioner Woodbury.
Thank you, Chair Martin. I just wanted to go back to the ARPA piece because I wanted to reemphasize a request that was presented to the Community and Economic Development team. I see Mr. Haney back in the back around trying to incorporate ARPA dollars into the map analysis input. And from what I was told, it should be able to be done. So, and I'm not sure if it could be done by next Thursday, but I think that it was something that was under consideration by that team.
Anything else needs to be said? I'll make a motion, we adjourn. Is there a second?
Sorry. So the only other item I just wanted to mention is, we did have the session Monday night, Tuesday night, whatever it was.
Tuesday.
Okay, yeah, it's a long week. There were a number of, what we thought we would do, and Ashley may have already done it, and I just hadn't looked at my email. We will get you the questions that were asked, and I know there was a little bit of frustration, particularly by folks who wanted to talk about educational items who felt like they didn't get their question asked. There were about 8 questions. When we knew we were up against the deadline, there were about 8 questions. We looked at them. The questions were very, very similar. So they were all asking a very similar question, and so we did get that question out there, but just so you know exactly, how many people were asked questions, we'll get that out to you. And so you've got those.
Good.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to say that I thought that the session went very well for a first time, basically, learning on the fly how to do it. There were some bugs in the program, but if commissioners are interested in doing a similar event on a recurring basis, perhaps a bi-monthly or a quarterly program, I think that we get a lot of value out of it. And I very much appreciate staff that took extra time to do the work and commissioners whose schedules permitted them to come out and be a part of it. Thank you.
And I would just, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I would just like to add to Commissioner Bessie's point that I'm very appreciative of the time of staff to come out and support the town hall, and I think the community was very engaged with the process. And I would like for, ideally, maybe the commissioners to consider a town hall kind of structure built into our meeting so that possibly 3 times out the year or quarterly, the town hall meeting would fall inside of a Thursday, but we would just meet more towards the latter end of the day so that as many people that was at the town hall could participate. So we're talking about essentially where the road meets the rubber. 3 times a year we would meet, possibly after 5 or at 5, so that especially a lot of the folk that can't make these meetings could come. I think I heard a lot of that from the audience, especially from some of our educators.
Commissioner Banansky, comment?
Oh, yeah. I just wanted to say thank you, Dudley, and also to the staff for attending. It was unfortunate, though, that the attendance wasn't what I associated might have transpired, but hopefully if we decide to do this in the future, we will get more engagement with the community. So, again, thank you. I think it was a great town hall. Pardon?
Oh, there were about 50 people there.
Yeah.
50?
Yeah.
I'm just used to more than 50,
Okay.
in our meetings here sometimes when we have visitors. So nevertheless, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Let me ask this. Is there anything else that needs to be said by anybody before we adjourn?
Next Thursday at 10 o'clock in the morning?
Yes.
Here.
Thank you. Good. Very good. Now I make a motion, we adjourn. Is there a second?
So moved.
All right. Adjourned.
Yeah, I like your frame now. That's the keeper right there.
I appreciate it.
I've heard about you making frames for years and never had one, so I'm very pleased.
Here.